watching Retribution, it felt, to me, it felt more like a video game than the others have. It felt closer to the spirit of the video game. Was that the intention, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's always been a video game aesthetic in the franchise, in the way it's composed. But this one, I think Milla fighting her way across these different environments, it definitely kind of suggested kind of different levels in a video game, with each level having kind of like a boss battle at the end. So I think it just felt like a video game. The structure kind of naturally, it wasn't an intentional thing. But, as we were making the movie, I'm like, this really does feel like a video game. I guess I've played so many of them, it's not surprising it kind of like seeps into the work I do in movies.
A lot has been talked about, the bringing so many of the fellow cast members in. Finding a way to do that, what was the challenge of it, and when did you know this was the right way?
Well, I think in the third movie we introduced the idea of cloning, which kind of opened the door for the potential return of these characters. And it's something I've always wanted to do. I mean, I missed working with Michelle so much. I mean, she's such a doll. I mean, she's so great. She's such a good energy to have around. And she works so well with Milla. I mean, the two of them are hysterical together. And they play off one another really, really well. And I thought that dynamic they had in the first movie, I was very keen to try and repeat that. So I've been looking for a way to bring her back to the franchise ever since we killed her in the first one.
Can't believe you killed her in the first one.
Well,
man.
she told me at the time it was a mistake. I mean, I remember vividly having a conversation with her. She had a bullet hole in her head. She said, "You know what, Paul, you'll make a big mistake here. You're going to regret this." And of course, when the movie was done, I did regret it because I'm like, oh, why did we kill her? She was so great. But now we have the fun of working with her again.
Yeah, and it was a fun way to bring her back. And it seems like, I mean, again, how far can you go with this? How far do you want to go with this? Because you could go a long way.
My feeling about Resident Evil is it's a franchise, a feature film franchise that was born out of passion. I mean, everyone had a real passion to make the very first movie. I wrote the first screenplay on spec. It was not like it was a hard movie to get made. And Milla really wanted to be in the movie. She was a fan of the video game. Michelle almost begged to be in the film. She was so crazy about it. Everyone was there for passion. And because they loved the subject matter, they loved Resident Evil. And that's continued. And I think that's why we make these movies. It's not one of those franchises where everyone's like, oh, I have to make another Resident Evil, but I want to buy another house. It's kind of like no one's there to collect a paycheck. Everyone's there because they have a really good time making the movies and they really enjoy what they do and they're passionate about what they do. Milla christened this shoot kind of Camp Evil. Yeah. And it felt like that. It felt like all the actors were going to camp together. And I think as long as that passion continues, that's why we would continue to make the movies.
Talk a little bit about the 3D process and how you approach it, because the 3D here is, I was right in front, blaring at me. It was very intense. What was it like for you going in, and would you ever do a film like this without it?
I love 3D, and every movie I've made since I started working in 3D has been 3D. I love it. I think it's very immersive. I think for the right kind of film, it's an awesome tool for a filmmaker. I believe that it has to be native 3D, which means you have to originate the movie in 3D and actually shoot 3D. I don't like conversions. I think if you have all the money and all the time in the world, you can do an okay conversion. I thought Titanic was okay, and I've seen bits of Star Wars, it looks okay, but it's still not as good as shooting in 3D. I think the quality of the 3D is so much better. So I think if a movie is mounted correctly, the 3D can be really intense. And I like it because it's immersive, it drags people into the screen, but I make no secret of it. I like stuff kind of flying out as well. I like putting stuff in the audience. And I think the audience do too. I mean, I think a lot of critics, I've noticed, are very kind of snooty about, stuff flying into the audience. But you go and talk to a real audience member, which I do obviously a lot, and if they've paid those extra few dollars for 3D, and there isn't shit flying above their heads, they feel robbed somehow. It's like, well, why did I bother watching it in 3D? If I wanted it to be all flat with a little bit of dimension, I may as well watch the 2D version. Exactly. So, I mean, I think we try and give people, value for money. I mean, that's my approach to 3D is you're asking the audience to pay an enhanced ticket price. You better give them an enhanced experience when they're in the cinema.